I woke up one Saturday morning to the sound of engines and slamming car doors, shattering what should have been a peaceful start to the day. My family's farmhouse, standing proud on this land for over 70 years, was here long before the fancy houses of Greenview Heights sprang up around it. 3 years ago, when my grandpa passed, I inherited this 10-acre farm. It's not just land to me. It's my roots, my future, my daily joy. But that morning, at 7 a.m., I threw on my robe and stumbled outside in my pajamas, my old farm dog buddy barking at my heels. What I saw made my blood boil. At least a dozen cars parked in neat rows across my east field, where I'd planned to plant corn next week. A woman in a crisp green blazer, clipboard in hand, was directing more vehicles onto my property like she owned it. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" I yelled, jogging across the yard. The woman turned, her smile tight and forced. "Good morning," she said, her tone dripping with fake cheer. "I'm Linda Carter, president of the Greenview Heights Homeowners Association." "I don't care who you are," I shot back, trying to keep my voice steady. "This is private property, my property, and you're trespassing." Linda tilted her head, like I was some clueless kid. "Oh, you must be mistaken. This area has been designated as community overflow parking in our HOA bylaws." She glanced at her clipboard. "Are you the Carter who lives in that old farmhouse? We've been trying to reach you about joining our association." "There's no mistake," I said, pulling out my phone to show her my property deed. "I've never signed anything with your HOA. This land's been in my family for generations. We're not part of your little development." Her smile faltered. "Well, it's been community parking for years. The previous board must have had a deal with your grandfather." "My grandpa would have never agreed to this," I snapped. "He taught me to fight for every inch of this soil." Neighbors were gathering now, some looking sheepish, others annoyed. A guy in golf shorts shouted, "Hurry it up, we'll miss the tournament." Then I spotted something worse, a big truck backing toward my tomato patch. "Stop that truck," I yelled, breaking into a run. "You're ruining my crops." The driver slammed on the brakes just shy of my plants, rolling down his window. "Lady up front told me to park big rigs back here." I spun around to face Linda, who'd followed me, her face red with irritation. "Mr. Carter, you're causing a scene. We've got a golf tournament today, and this is the overflow lot." "Says who?" I demanded. "Show me one paper with my signature on it. Our bylaws clearly state." "I'm not in your community," I cut her off. "You've got 1 hour to get these cars off my land, or I'm calling the sheriff to tow them, at your expense." Linda's eyes narrowed. "You wouldn't dare." I held up my phone. "Try me." She grabbed my wrist. "Listen carefully. Greenview Heights is home to the mayor, 2 council members, and Judge Harper. Who do you think the sheriff will back? A bunch of community leaders, or one stubborn farmer?" I yanked my arm free. "Take your hands off me. That's assault on top of trespassing." A few neighbors overheard, and an older man stepped in. "Linda, maybe we should move the cars if this is really his land." "It's HOA property now," she barked. "And you can thank Mr. Carter when you're late for tea time." A sleek black SUV rolled up, and a sharp-dressed man stepped out, Greg Simmons, HOA attorney. Ignoring me, he asked Linda, "Is there a problem?" She smirked. "Perfect timing, Greg. Our friend here's confused about the parking setup." Greg offered his hand. "Greg Simmons, HOA attorney. And you are?" "The legal owner of the property you're trespassing on," I said, not shaking his hand. His smile didn't budge. "I get your confusion. An easement for community parking was set up years ago. I've got copies at my office." "An easement I never signed," I insisted. "Show me the paperwork." "Now, we can discuss this calmly," Greg said. "Maybe over coffee. No need for threats." I looked around, cars on my fields, entitled neighbors glaring at me. "You've got 1 hour," I repeated. "Then I'm calling the sheriff, the news, and every tow truck in the county." I stormed back to my house, ignoring Linda's protests. Inside, my hand shook as I dialed the county records office. "This is Ryan Carter at the old Thompson farm outside Greenview Heights. I need to check for easements on my property, urgently." "We close at noon," a cheerful voice replied. "Can you come now?" It was 9:15 a.m. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. As I grabbed my keys, I saw more cars arriving. Linda smirked toward my house, directing a pickup right up against my tomatoes. This wasn't just parking, it was war. At the records office, a quiet Saturday shift greeted me. An older man at the desk looked up. I'm Ryan Carter. I called about the Thompson farm. Bill Harris, he said, shaking my hand. Been here 30 years. Knew your grandpa. You did. Old man Thompson was a legend, Bill grinned. Sharp as a tack, especially about protecting his land. He let me to a room stuffed with files and computers. Your property's got history. The Greenview developers tried buying it for years. Your grandpa never budged. Sounds like him, I said, pride swelling. Bill pulled out folders, deeds, tax records, permits, and after 20 minutes, he leaned back. No easement for parking or access on your land. Not a shred of proof your grandpa agreed to anything with the HOA. Relief hit me. So they're trespassing? Without question, Bill confirmed. But here's something else. He slid over a yellowed paper. Your grandpa gave the power company an easement 30 years ago to run lines through your north corner. What's that mean? He showed me a faded map. The main transformer powering Greenview Heights? It's on your land. Your grandpa set it up when the development started. The power company pays you $500 a year for access. I stared. You're saying their electricity depends on my property? Bill's eyes twinkled. Legally, you control access to that transformer. Can they move it? Not easily. It'd cost a fortune, need county approval, new permits, and you're okay to end the easement. What about the payments? I've never seen a dime. Bill checked his computer. They've been going to a trust in your grandpa's name since he passed. You should update it with Pinewood Electric. I left with copies of everything, my mind buzzing. On the drive home, I called Pinewood's emergency line. This is Ryan Carter. I own the land with Transformer 8245. I need to talk to someone about unauthorized access, now. After 2 transfers, I got Ron Baxter, operations manager. Mr. Carter, what's the issue? The Greenview HOA's claiming rights to my land, I explained. I'm worried about people messing with the transformer. That's serious, Ron said. That unit powers over 200 homes. Only our techs should be near it. Exactly, I replied. I'm putting up cameras today. Who's allowed access? Just Pinewood techs with ID, Ron assured me. I'll email your maintenance schedule. By the time I got home, most cars were gone, leaving tire tracks and crushed plants. I photographed the damage, weeks of work ruined. Then came a knock. Linda stood there with Greg, plus a stern man and a young woman with a clipboard. Mr. Carter, Linda began, overly sweet. We've brought the parking agreement to sign. A formality. No cars on my land by day's end, I said. And I want payment for my crops. Greg stepped up. That's not how this works. The HOA voted to use this area. We're just asking for cooperation. And if I don't, I asked. The stern man spoke. I'm Paul Grayson, city councilman. This community's tax revenue matters. We can find a fair deal. The young woman hesitated. An environmental study for new parking would take months. This is the only option for events. I smiled. I just came from the records office. There's no parking easement on my land. Never was. Linda waved it off. Old paperwork can be fixed. And your power supply? I held up the easement docs. The transformer for your whole neighborhood's on my property. Their faces dropped. Linda's smile vanished. Greg fidgeted. Paul stepped back. I'm revoking non-essential access until this is settled, I said. Pinewood's been informed. You can't. Linda sputtered. People have medical needs, fridges. I'm not cutting power, I clarified. I'm using my rights like you're trying to use yours. Paul coughed. Let's not rush. We can work this out. Here's my deal, I said. Cars gone by 5 p.m., full crop compensation, and a sign note that my land's not HOA property. Or what? Linda challenged, weaker now. I tapped the easement, or I deny maintenance access next week. Hot summer ahead, tough if the system fails. They left, whispering furiously. Ron from Pinewood called. Heard there's an access issue with E245. Everything okay? There's a mix-up with the HOA, I said. They think they own my land. That's trouble, Ron replied. Any access block could disrupt service. I don't want that, I said. Just need my rights respected. I'll come Monday to inspect and discuss access, Ron offered. Sometimes an official visit helps. I thanked him, but then saw Linda's car return, with 3 police cruisers, lights flashing. This wasn't over.